The sky wore a copper veil that morning, and the land breathed slow under the weight of the sun. Boaz McCullen stood on the porch of his ranch house, boots polished, shirt tucked tight across his middle, and a bouquet of wild prairie lilies clenched in one hand. He had been alone for 7 years. Not the kind of alone you fill with noise or drink, but the kind that grows quiet roots, lonely enough to make a man talk to fence posts, but not desperate enough to beg. He had written the letter in winter. His handwriting had trembled through each word, sealed in hope and sweat. He hadn't expected much. Just someone to share supper with. Someone who might laugh without scorn. Someone who'd look at him and not flinch. The stagecoach arrived in a puff of red dust. It shuddered to a stop before the gate he had painted new just for today. Clara Hensley stepped down like she was arriving at a gala, not a cattle-worn ranch 2 hours from the nearest town. She wore a dress the color of cold cream and boots without scuff. Her hair, curled too perfectly for the plains, was pinned with small pearls that winked like they knew something cruel. She looked at Boaz once, then again, longer the second time, and her lips twitched, not in kindness but calculation. He offered the bouquet. She didn't take it. "I thought you'd be different," she said. The silence after her words swelled, thick as honey left in the sun. "You didn't mention your size." Boaz's voice caught like a knot in a rope. "Didn't think it mattered. I run a good spread. Keep clean. Honest." Clara turned her head as if looking would soil her. "I came to be courted, not to manage livestock for a glutton." Her heels clicked against the steps as she marched inside, dust trailing her hem like a warning. For 3 days, she stayed. Not once did she help with meals. Not once did she look Boaz in the eye. And on the 4th morning, she was gone, taking nothing, not even the dress he'd left folded on the bed in case she lacked a change. Word spread fast. Eli Crowder at the Mercantile made sure of it. "Big Bo got himself a male bride," folks whispered, "but even the post don't stay long with him." Boaz didn't answer. He worked longer, sun up to dead dark, until even the horses stopped waiting for him to speak. He kept Clara's sealed letter in the kitchen drawer, unopened. It was Delilah who came next. Quiet as smoke and twice as uncertain. She stepped off the afternoon stagecoach with one bag, one limp, and a look like she'd swallowed more sorrow than food. She stood at the gate for a while, unsure if it was courage or madness that would lead her through. Her dress was plain, faded blue, sleeves worn thin at the elbows. She looked at the house, then at Boaz, who stood again on the porch, this time with no flowers. "I'm Delilah," she said. "Clara's sister." Boaz said nothing. "She told me what she did. Sent me the ticket. Said I'd fit better here. I can cook if you want that. So, too. Won't cost you anything. Just room, maybe." His eyes squinted under the brim of his hat. "I didn't ask for another. I didn't ask to be sent." She gave a tired smile. "But I'm here." He stepped aside. That was all. She entered with the air of someone used to silence, and too many doors slammed shut. For the first week, they barely spoke. Boaz kept to the barn. Delilah kept to the hearth. She washed his shirts without comment, folded his socks with care, left supper warming no matter how late he returned. At first, he thought it pity. Then he realized it was habit, kindness worn into her bones, not stretched thin for his approval. One evening, he found her outside, pulling weeds near the chicken coop. Her hair had come loose, falling over her cheek like spilled ink. "You don't have to do that," he said. "I know," she replied, not looking up. "But it feels good to be useful again." He noticed the way her hands trembled when she stood. Not from weakness, but from pain she was trying to outwork. He wanted to ask, but didn't. She didn't offer, and he figured everyone carries something they'd rather bury than explain. The wind picked up one night, and with it came the smell of rain. Boaz stood at the window while Delilah lit the lamps. Her shadow danced across the wall like something that belonged there. "You sleep okay in that room?" he asked. She paused. "Better than most places." He turned. "What kind of places?" She gave him a long look. The kind where men knock but don't ask, and women leave with silence stitched into their mouths. Boaz gripped the edge of the sink. He didn't speak. Not because he didn't care, but because he did. In the mornings, she began leaving a cup of coffee on the porch rail, exactly where he liked it. In the evenings, he mended the creaky step near her door. He didn't tell her. She didn't ask. But she smiled the next time she stepped out barefoot. One afternoon, he found her asleep by the fireplace, an embroidery hoop on her lap, her fingers still curled as if sewing dreams. A single tear had dried on her cheek. He watched her breathe, slow and steady, and thought, for the first time in years, how tender a thing loneliness could be when shared. That night, he asked, "Why'd you come, really?" She didn't open her eyes. Because sometimes, the place that looks most broken is the only one left to heal you. He sat beside her, not touching, just listening to the crackle of the fire. The dogs curled at their feet. Outside, the moon climbed slow over the hills. He didn't know it yet, but the house had already begun to change. The wind no longer howled through the eaves, it whispered. The chickens laid steadier. Even the porch light, long dimmed, flickered a little brighter. He hadn't asked for a second chance. He just hadn't turned it away. And Delilah. She wasn't here for love, not yet. She was here because she needed soil soft enough to grow in again. And in Boaz's silence, in the way he never pressed her, she found a place where her voice could start to return. But the peace they built was fragile, still wrapped in old wounds. And out beyond the ridge, the storm that would test it had already begun to gather. The storm came in on a Wednesday, silent at first. A hush spread over the plains like a held breath. Boaz noticed it in the way the horses stood still, ears cocked to the east. Delilah felt it too, her hands paused mid-stitch, thread dangling loose, the sky above turning the color of old bruises. That morning, they'd spoken more than usual. He had brought in firewood before she asked. She'd made cornbread just the way he liked it, with honey crusted on the top. Neither of them mentioned the weight that still hovered between them, the question of what they were becoming. But the silence wasn't uncomfortable anymore. It was theirs. By evening, the wind began to scream, slapping shutters and tugging at the barn door like a drunk with something to prove. Boaz tied down the water barrels and checked the animals twice. Delilah boiled water just in case. They worked beside each other, not as strangers or duty-bound housemates, but as a pair shaped by habit and necessity. He handed her a candle. She touched his wrist as she took it. That fleeting warmth stayed with him longer than the firelight. Then came the knock. A sharp, panicked bang on the door, 3 times. Boaz opened it without thinking, and there she was, a woman, soaked through, hair tangled with leaves and blood drying down her cheek. Her eyes wide, breath ragged, like something wild had chased her all the way to this porch. She swayed forward, then collapsed. Delilah knelt instantly, catching the woman before she hit the floor. "She's bleeding," she said, already working at the buttons of her coat. Boaz cleared the table with one sweep, laying her gently down as the storm roared louder. "Mercy Quinn," Delilah muttered, brushing hair from the woman's face. "She's the widow who took over the edge plot outside town. I've seen her once at the market." Boaz wrapped a quilt around her while Delilah worked, heating broth, pressing cloth to her wound. There were no questions, no hesitation. Just action. Just care. By dawn, Mercy had a pulse and a story. The roof of her cabin had collapsed. She'd walked for miles after the storm broke it apart. No one in town had come. No one had helped. Delilah's eyes darkened. "Not even Eli?" she asked. Mercy shook her head. "He closed the shop. Said it wasn't his business." Boaz said nothing, but something inside him turned. A slow churn of old anger and quiet guilt. He knew what it was to cry out and hear no answer. The townsfolk noticed Mercy's absence the next day. Eli Crowder, sharp-eyed and sharp-tongued, mentioned it first. "Funny business at McCullen's place," he told a gathering at the post. "Widow Quinn's laid up over there, and that mail-order girl's still clinging on. Looks like Big Beau's collecting strays now." The laughter was hollow, but it carried. By sundown, the whispers had legs, and by morning they had wings. Delilah heard them while buying flour. She kept her head down, but her hands trembled. When she returned, her suitcase was already out. "I'm not doing this again," she said, her voice quiet but edged with steel. "I won't be gossip's meal. I won't be your shame." Boaz stood across the room, heavy with the words he didn't know how to say. "It ain't shame," he finally muttered. "It's just hard." "Then say it's worth it," she said. "Or let me go." He stared at her, unsure. She waited, but he said nothing. So she turned, lifted the handle, and walked out into the growing dusk. He didn't chase her. Not right away. That night, lightning split the sky. Boaz sat by the window, Mercy asleep behind him, rain drumming against the roof. He watched the trail Delilah had taken, heart full of words that came too late. The fire burned low. The dog whimpered. Still, he didn't move. Then, a scream. It came from town. Then, another. Boaz jumped to his feet. He saddled the mule in the dark and rode out, rain slapping his face. The store was on fire, Eli's place. Flames licked the roof, smoke curling up into the night like a soul being torn free. People scrambled with buckets, shouting over the wind. But it wasn't enough. The roof caved in, and someone cried out from inside. Boaz didn't think. He threw himself through the doorway, smoke clawing his lungs. He found Eli under a beam, pinned and gasping. "Get the boy." Eli coughed. "My nephew, he's in the back." Boaz lifted the beam, dragging Eli clear, then charged into the rear. Flames chewed at the shelves. He found the boy curled beneath a counter, coughing but alive. He lifted him, wrapped him in his coat, and burst back out as the wall gave way behind them. Delilah was already there, soaked and breathless. She'd come back with Mercy, carrying buckets from the well. They'd seen the smoke from the ridge. She caught Boaz as he stumbled, holding the boy close. "You fool," she whispered. "You big, silent fool." The next morning, no one laughed. The gossip died like smoke after rain. Mercy tended Eli's wounds. The boy lived. And Boaz, he didn't say much. But he walked beside Delilah all the way home. When they reached the porch, she paused. "Still want me gone?" she asked. He took the satchel from her hand and placed it gently inside the door. "I built this place alone," he said. "But it wasn't a home, till you put water on the fire." She smiled. Not wide, not dramatic. Just enough. A year later, the porch held 2 rocking chairs. The ranch had chickens, a new fence, and a dog that never left Boaz's side. Mercy visited every Sunday. Eli, limping but changed, came too, bringing eggs and apologies. Boaz still didn't talk much. But every morning, Delilah found her coffee on the rail, right where she liked it. And when folks asked about the woman who took her sister's place, they'd say, "She didn't replace her. She saved him." Quietly. Like a seed blooming where no one thought flowers could grow. Because some love stories aren't loud. They're whispered, watered by grace, and told only by those who know how it feels to be broken, and still choose to stay.